Today's video is going to talk about how to identify which era that your postcard was created in. Welcome back, guys. I'm going to start off today by showing you a few of these postcards. These are, at first glance, they appear to be real photo postcards. I'm going to lace them out here. That one is of a guy kind of dressed up. We got a child here, Sunday school. I have it looking like he's got his little spectacles on there, like he's reading the paper. Here's one of a guy leaning back, kind of making a weird face, kind of got some tarnished clothing on. Here's a family at an old vehicle next to a landmark. It's probably over in Colorado or Utah or someplace like that. It looks like the same man in different poses, all playing cards. Here's three musketeers with their swords. A lady on some sort of a weird mechanical contraption that she can almost like pedal, but she's on train tracks. Here's a little girl with a bunch of chickens. Again, some men playing cards at an old desk, and maybe the same guys, I don't know. But playing cards here, a bunch of skeletons. Now, these are cool, but don't be fooled, folks. Don't be fooled. These are probably based off of actual photographs. However, they are not real photo postcards. They are not on photo paper. This is just cardstock. The corners are and the edges are very, very clean. There's almost no tarnishing, not the type of iridescent look that you would normally see on a real photo postcard. If you flip them over, you're going to see kind of this gold leaf. It's kind of attractive looking. Postcard, it says at the top. But at the bottom, it's going to give like basically a name or a title to the piece. It gives a description. And then down here, it says that it was made by a company called Vintage Images. It's made on recycled paper. It doesn't say a date, but these are not original, authentic, old postcards. These are reproduction postcards. Do they still have value? Yeah, sure. I wouldn't try to sell these individually. I would probably throw these up in lots of 10 or 20 a piece and try to maybe get $1 a piece out of them. That might even be too much. But they are cool. A person might think it's fun to have a handful of different ones. I've got a stack of maybe 75 of these that came in with a large kind of lot purchase I did of various things. It's a bummer these aren't original, because these could be some really valuable cards if they were authentic originals. They aren't. So just always turn over and examine and look at the backs of these cards. Another thing that's an indication is just how clean and pristine it looks. There's no rubbing, wearing. It's not been used. There's no condition issues at all, which is an indication that is a newer card. So this video is going to go into the different eras and time periods that postcards were made and some of the differences. This is not going to be exhaustive, but I'm going to give you a general idea. From 1861 to 1898 was different types of cards that are called pioneer cards. Anything after like during this period, essentially, businesses could make these cards and sell them for postage outside of just things that were pre-printed by the U.S. government, talking about the United States. And so the first type, I guess, would be called a Lippmann card. And that's what this is. This is, you can see from the postal mark up here, it's October 22nd, 1884. So you've got pre-printed postage on there. It has just the person's name and city that they live in. And then on the back, which was typical of these cards, it wasn't actually made to have like a photograph or a picture or something like most postcards you know of. Instead, businesses would buy these, and it was sort of a cheap way to advertise. So this was obviously sent to somebody, but on the back here you have an advertisement for Stevens bicycle, rifles, and shotguns. And so this person's business is now advertised to whoever this goes to. So that's a very old card, 1884. The next type of card would be kind of more considered to be just like a government-issued postal card. And so you can see it says, it doesn't say postcard, it says postal card. And again, you have pre-printed postage up here, 1 cent. You got a president there. And this, again, it's addressed to a person in just a town, didn't need a zip code, didn't need a street address. They could find you. And then on the back, it's completely blank, and it's just set up to write whatever message you want to write to the person. This one is dated December 26th, 1885. So it's the very next year, but it's a difference in card. And on one side, obviously, you've got something printed. Previously, the other would have been blank. Now, there are other types of cards before we get to the next that would be, view cards, Pioneer View era cards. But when we get a little bit further in, you're going to get to a time period where we're going to look at what would be called a private mailing card. And this was a very short time period, 1898 to 1901. And so these are distinct. Usually they have some sort of picture, oftentimes black and white like this. This one's off-centered, so you have the writing on one side. And then on the back, it's going to say private mailing card. So in contrast to postal cards, this now says private mailing card. In 1898, Congress passed a bill that cut the cost of postage in half for commercially produced cards, from 2 cents down to 1 cent, which was required for government-issued postal cards. And so in order to do this, they had to print private mailing card authorized, and you can see it right here, authorized by the Act of Congress of May 19th, 1898. So this one was not actually sent until 1904, but this is a good example of a private mailing card. It's not in the greatest shape. It's got some tears and stuff, but it's also a very old card. It was sent in 1904, but it had to have been purchased between 1898 and 1901. As we move into the 1900s and we get into, really more like 1899 and then forwards up into the 1920s and even longer in time than that, you get into what they call real photo postcards. There's another type of card, unfortunately I don't have an example in this one, hopefully I can put one on soon, but that are called cyanotypes, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But this is a real photo postcard. What you're looking at is an actual photograph of a couple of young girls holding hands, being sweet. And you can see that this kind of discoloration and this it's different on the front here. It's because this is on photographic paper that you would have, the same thing that you would just put a photograph on, but they're made with pre-printed spots on the back that says Postcard, and you can place a stamp there. And we have this division here. Now, I'm showing this first because you can find real photo postcards that do not have divisions back here, and then some that do. So let's talk about that for a moment. These are real photo postcards. Cyanotype cards are just like this. They're real photographs, except it's not black and white. It's actually just different shades of dark blue. And those are some of the earliest ones made of real photos, and people could do that development process. They didn't necessarily even need a dark room in order to do it, whereas a lot of these were actually sent off to commercial photography studios and places where they could mass produce these. I have a couple of cards here that are set up for kind of like older humor. They're cartoons that have been drawn. This one says, "Happy days in the shade of the old apple tree." Maybe they're having some cider here or something, but they're having a drink. And this is another one, "A mortifying predicament." He is, get it, the pun there, mortifying. He's got his hand in some wet mortar, but he fell in because he's intoxicated, folks. This is like a temperance, anti-alcohol type of a humor card. But if we flip these over, you're going to see a couple of differences. I'll start over here. So, excuse me. There was a period of time where there were postcards made that were undivided and ones that were divided. It's exactly what it sounds like. This one has a line down the center. This one does not. And the purpose of these cards oftentimes was not to send communication or information. It was simply just to send a card. And then all you were to do on the back is write the person's name and the place that it's going to. This is posted in 1907. The undivided era of postcards was from 1901 to 1907. And so this would have been the last year that cards were printed that were not divided. Same type of card, as you can see. And actually, I picked this one because it was sent out in 1908, so the very next year, and you can see how it changed. The pictures on the front are not that different. Maybe the same illustrator, maybe even the same manufacturer of the card, but in this case, it's not divided. It's divided over here because now we've entered into the realm of being able to send a little note or some information on one side, and then on the other, you can actually put the address and who it's going to. 1907 to 1914 is when you had these divided cards that were made in this particular way. I'll do another video in the future on maybe some newer cards, but I buy and sell, I focus primarily on antique and vintage items, and that's why I have these kinds of cards. There are cards that are considered linen cards, there are chrome cards, and all the way up into newer postcards. But we started off with private and government issued, pre-printed, posted postcards, postal cards. We moved to private mailing cards for a short period of time. Then there was the introduction of photographic cards made by people in their own homes and in their own area. They took them with an early model Kodak. I think it was a Model 2 or 3, something like that. And they could have their own photographs put on postcards to send. Most of those were undivided until 1907, and then they became divided so that people could actually begin writing messages and communicate in that way. Hope that helps, folks. Now you might know the different era and time period, at least, that your cards are from. Good luck hunting.